Welcome to memoQ Talks, where we talk to industry leaders about their experiences, lessons learned, and what works best across all areas of localization. Now here's your host.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the new episode of memoQ Talks. I'm Chadimir Pushica, and today I'm going to talk to Olivera Rosulnik of GORR about growing a translation business. It is always a thrill to me to look at the beginnings and see how things started. It's like looking at the universe through a telescope and trying to understand the birth of stars. This is why I think Olivera's story and that of her agency GORR, GORR, is a good example. They are a 6-people international team based in Slovenia and starting to expand, which captures that first moment of trying to grow into a bigger and more relevant player. We'll look into the ideas behind, the humble beginnings, solidifying the structures, and the big plans. Welcome, Olivera.
Hi, Chedo. Thank you for having me, and thank you for such a great intro. I don't get a lot of those.
I'm happy you like it. So now, before we start, can you tell me something about yourself and your company? I mean, we did talk before this, but for our listeners, I think it's worth mentioning.
Thank you for that. Just in brief, I'm born and raised in Serbia, and then I got the opportunity to study in the Czech Republic. So I spent 5 years there, and this was really a great lifetime experience. I got to learn the language, meet the Czech people, the Czech culture, but also many people from around the world. So this was really amazing experience, and then I met my husband, and then I moved to Slovenia. So this is where I'm currently based and where the company is. So like many of people from the industry, we both got into this business more or less by chance. So when I moved to Slovenia, I knew no language, I had no contacts really. And I still had to pay my bills basically, and the only tangible work experience I had was translating some articles for my faculty department in the Czech Republic. So I held my hands on this experience, and then started sending CVs to the local Slovenian agencies. And in about 2 days, I got the first offer, which was really exciting, and I thought it was the great one. From today's perspective, I know it wasn't, but then I was thrilled. And Gregor, my husband, on the other side, he had a good job, well-paid job, but he always wanted to have his own business. So after I had this first experience, we looked at each other and said, is this something that we could actually do? So it really started like that. We registered the company, GORR, which is actually, these are our initials, GORR, bought a laptop, and just started creating the pool of first clients and vendors. We didn't start from the garage, but it was a closed balcony. That was our first office. So as you said, the starts were really simple, basic, humble. I mean, I think that we stayed humble until today, that we still are. But when I look back, it was something. It was. I'm not sure from today's perspective if I would be brave and courageous as we both were at the time. So that's how GORR was born, actually.
What's your husband's background?
He was most of his life. He was in sales. He studied economics, but he was in sales. I studied sociology and international relations. So none of us is from translation industry or linguist. Which is why this was an extra challenge for us. So we needed to start really from the scratch. And to be entirely honest, as I mentioned in start, Gregor did have this business drive, having his own business. But maybe at the beginning, as maybe a lot of people think when they start their business, is about, it's the financial part, getting rich, having, and having your business and everything that comes with that. But soon after, we realized that this industry has so many layers and it has a lot to bring to you, so many great people, many great stories. So without sounding too cheesy, we really fell in love in the industry. And then maybe the first financial motive that was out there just disappeared. We got entirely different motivation and drive.
Mm-hmm. And now that you said that you're both from an industry which is not related closely to translation, to languages, although you knew languages, and that's like, do you think that it was more of an advantage or a disadvantage looking from this point in time, looking back?
That's really a good question, because now when it's not only the two of us in the team, it really depends at what level of the business you observe. Sometimes it can be a burden if you are translator or linguist by education. And it's a good characteristic, but they are really too picky, and they look really at everything. And sometimes you do not need this burden. You have to decide quick and act quickly. So in some parts, in terms of being burdened, and also in terms of being burdened that there's a lot of competition out there. We started in Slovenia, and Slovenia is a really small market with many players, small players, larger players. So if we looked at that, I think we wouldn't go this way. But we really, we didn't see anything as a challenge. Maybe now from today's perspective, I would say, oh my God, we had to deal with this and that. But then we just went with the flow. Especially Gregor, I think he was the one that was more involved because he was the one that had to get the first clients. So my answer is yes and no. It depends which part of business you're observing.
Yeah, that's really excellent. That's what I was actually trying to get from you, because sometimes, as you mentioned, people get too much into the profession, not to look into the entire environment. And yeah, so this really did answer my question. Now, when you started the agency, what was the first thing you were trying to do? What were your priorities and what were the big challenges?
As I mentioned, we opened the business in Slovenia, which is a 2 million people country. So it's a really small market and with a lot of players in it. So basically the first and only priority was, of course, to survive. It's as simple as that. But I have to say that from the very start, we had eyes on big futures. So we definitely, from the very start, we wanted to become relevant and to build our name. So the priority was definitely to get those first clients and to build the basic pool of vendors which you can whom you can totally rely on. So that's more or less what was the task one. Of course, later on we had to solidify, create first workflows, and of course, since we were totally newbies to the industry, we had to learn a lot. We had to learn basically on the go and implement this on the go without creating any frictions in the business, without stopping any projects. And as for the challenges, as I mentioned, we didn't identify anything as a challenge. I'm sure we had a lot of those, but we were so thrilled and driven that nothing was too hard for us. Maybe one of the challenge I would maybe emphasize and might be useful for some of your listeners that will start business. We were couple, we were partners in private life and then partners in business. So soon we realized that we definitely had to split our roles in the company. So even I'm more on the vendor and production side, and Gregor is more on in sales, finances, and running business in general. So we had to put these complementary characteristics together at the same time and split them. So this is maybe one of the important challenges, but I'm happy that we managed to solve that pretty fast.
So why is that important? What was the challenge if you did not split it? What did you envisage as a possible problem?
I mean, there are frictions, you know, when you have an opinion and it's different, and especially if that department is not really what you know. For example, finances, that's not my thing, and vice versa. Gregor is not that involved with vendors, so. If you do not split the roles and everyone gets into everyone's business, it can be a total mess. There would be a lot of frictions which a business doesn't need. Plus, everyone is good at something and not good at different things, and I think that this complementarity of features that every person has should be split at the same time. So you stay in your division, and I think that then business runs more smoothly than if everyone does everything, at least at the management level.
Very good point. And now I want to ask you, when you started out and your first clients, you were looking at the first clients, did you have any strategy, or like who were you even targeting? And was that Gregor's job, or was that something you came up together, who to go after?
Basically, we started in Slovenia, so our target were Slovenian companies, and Gregor already had some sales experience and some contacts, and of course we were targeting bigger companies in Slovenia. And one of the challenges, okay, now we are back to the challenge, was identifying the right contacts within the company. So basically, it could be someone at the reception, it could be the purchasing department, it could be marketing department. It was all around. So that's where we started, and then we sort of started extending to LSPs from abroad. Which is when we realized that there is so much content and so many projects out there. And then from there, so we were basically single language provider, moving to regional. And then what changed the most in that direction was Lockworld in Barcelona, 2016. When Gregor decided to go with a booth. So we had a booth there. So you can imagine all the big names and GORR among them. So we definitely drew some attention, if nothing else, met some great people, and of course got some great opportunities, which brought us to working globally and actually moving to multilingual language provider.
That's excellent story and a really good advice to anyone trying to grow their business, I think, is go to conferences, set up a booth. It's an investment. It's not a cost.
It's I have to say it's definitely an investment, but I remember it was costly. You know, we were at our start and it was costly, but it definitely was worth in all terms.
Now I want to go to your part of the responsibilities, the vendors. When you started out, you said you were a single language provider, and that was, I believe, Slovenian, right? And
Yes.
what were the other languages that you were targeting? And how many translators, external vendors, other linguists did you rely on in this initial phase?
So as you said, we started with Slovenia. Slovenian, normally even today, it's in combination with English, German, Croatian. But soon after, we started adding other, we say Balkan languages like Croatian, Serbian, Bosnian, etc. So our pool at start was rather modest. We knew that we have to rely on good people. So I truly do not remember how many people we had at the beginning, but it was certainly a small and reliable group. But then business and content and clients got more complex, requiring different profiles. As a vendor manager, I always insist, except for language pair, the translator needs to match in terms of specialization. We were adding new content, and then this required basically new people. So this our base of translators was getting bigger and bigger. But even today, I think that, we have, I don't know, 200 to 300 translators. But normally on a monthly basis, there is some core of people that you work the most. It really depends.
And now moving into the growth phase, when did you realize that it was time to grow, time for a change, and how did you approach growth?
We set this goal really early, that we will become relevant, important player, at least in the region. So everything was directed that way. As I mentioned, we had to learn a lot. We had to invest in technology, not only invest, but implement it the way not to disturb the ongoing projects. We had to choose, which technology and which solutions we can implement, which solutions fit our model, and which at the end of the day we can afford. So that's the basic element that's on even today. It's a never-ending story. But as I mentioned earlier, we were moving from the Slovenian market to the external market, and then started working globally. So growth was always a part of the plan, and it came sort of organically. It didn't cause us any confusion. We just knew that we have to solidify, create sophisticated workflows that would have to fit particular clients. And we knew that more than ever, we have to rely on good people on the other side, translators, and of course, in-house team. We had to build the in-house team to bring people with the knowledge, Yeah, that was more or less how it seemed.
Mm-hmm. So that was my next question. So you practically answered it. I was about to ask you what changed, but since the growth came organically, you were practically just solidifying the structures, and you answered it with the workflows. You were working a lot on that. So I don't think we should add anything to that. But
I
now,
mean, I could just add one thing that definitely what changed in the past years is that everything became more complex, and
okay.
it's not necessarily a good thing. Uh, but yeah, everything became more complex. The workflows, the clients, everything. So that's certainly what changed, and definitely what changed, at least in our mindset, that we were not aware of this from the very start. The role we actually have in the supply chain.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we were, you know, it's not only about providing translations, you know, words in another language, but we realized what these pieces of paper, let's call it that way, actually mean to the client, what it means to the client to have a web page in an extra language, and what it means for a client to be able to bid outside its borders. So we realized that our role was actually pretty important, not necessarily acknowledged, but that's yet another topic. We can talk for hours about that. So that's something in our mindset that definitely changed on the way.
Okay. And when you say complex clients, maybe more demanding, was it because you were choosing different types of clients, moving into a certain industry, or just things becoming complex on their own?
It's sort of both ways. We realized that I mean, quality was always our top priority, and we realized that from where we started and where we want to reach, we definitely have to build on that. So or we simply had to have more complex workflows, both in terms of particular tasks, both in terms of technology. We got TMS, we got memoQ, so and everything else. On the other side, yeah. Um, and on the other side, clients were also getting both more demanding and more complex. We are also working with other larger LSPs, and you know how it looks. You know, 1,000 TMSs, CATs, workflows, sheets, reports, etc. Um, so in that sense, yes, and even for the clients, we observe that the content is getting more important. The deadlines are shorter. Uh, so you know what you have to do in the sort of in the background without compromising the quality.
Looking back, is there anything that you would have done differently?
I'm sure. I mean, I have one thing on my mind, but I cannot disclose that yet. It's pretty recent. Um, I cannot really think anything big, and without I mean, this may sound as a cliche, but basically you live and learn. It sounds like a cliche, but it's true. So I think that you could have done differently almost everything on a daily basis, but I think what's important from there is to learn on mistakes. I know it sounds dumb, but it's so true. So if you get into the similar or same situation in the future, what can be done differently? So I don't have anything specific for you, unfortunately. So you get this general political answer only.
Yeah, that's what actually it sounds so simple, and it is so simple, but it's not easy to do. And this is something that I don't know if you heard about the big wealth investor Ray Dalio. He's been sharing his visions and his learnings from his own failures. And he mentioned that one of the most important things in life is to always reflect on the failures, what brought them, and then move on and not make the same mistakes again. So it's kind of relevant and applicable to anything in life and in business. So I will take that. And okay, now we will talk maybe in private about those real nice examples when we see each
Yeah,
other during this year's memoQ Fest.
yeah,
So
for sure, for sure.
that would be cool. So now I wanna talk about the services that you provide. Can you tell us something about that?
So for many years, written translations were our core. So basically, what we were mainly doing. Then in the past years, we started working with MT post editing, um, and that's basically more or less our core. We were also providing interpreting, on-site interpreting. And what we see in the past year is it's what's new in this direction, that once with the pandemic and everything, and the rise of remote interpreting, this became a pretty nice piece of a pie for us. With remote interpreting, the entire global market basically opened to us. So we could virtually provide interpreting anywhere on the globe. So we got some new accounts, or we extended the existing accounts, adding this service. And it's really exciting because we can work basically with any language at any part of the world, and being part of some really great stories which we probably wouldn't be if it was on site. So this is something new, and something that is getting more and more interesting for clients, and that we were really happy to adopt.
Mm-hmm. And now before I move on to the next question, I want to ask you about this machine translation post editing. How is that going? Because there is a lot of different feelings when we speak about it among translators, linguists, like anyone. Not many people have positive thoughts when it comes to that, but I believe that clients and certain types of clients really appreciate it. What kind of clients are these? What are the requirements? What type of let's say content renders itself best, and what is like the best way? When would you suggest to a big company, because I believe that's the big companies doing this, to go into machine translation post editing? What are the gains? What are the disadvantages?
I think it was a couple of years ago that was really this, we got this wave of empty post editing, and that was basically almost the only thing we discussed in the industry. So even in-house, we had different feelings about that. I have to say that, not about machine translation as such, as how to implement this. So we took it really step by step, but I think from today's perspective, we tend to filter what can fit for this service and what is not, and both what we do internally and both for what we do for external clients when they already provide us with their empty post editing. Unlike maybe years ago, when you're given the service, you have to do empty post editing, although the output is not good. We are getting more requests in terms of, let's check if empty makes sense here. Let's check the empty output. So I think we are moving forward to really filtering, not only in terms of content, but also in terms of language, where this MT went more or less far. What was our challenge is definitely the realization that really good translators are not necessarily good post editors. Although I have to, I mean, post editors in terms of the one that does post editing, because I saw some post somewhere the translator said we are not post editors, so I take that back. So we realized that post editors, I mean translators who did post editing, sometimes the output, the result was not good, that they delivered something that they would have never delivered if they did it from scratch. So we realized that there can be a trap that you're satisfied too fast with what MT has to offer. So that's when we internally sort of filtered people. Okay, they are capable of doing that, and these ones are not. And until today, we just have particular contents and particular clients where we said, okay, MT is not a good choice here. So I think we are more smart about it nowadays, which was not, I mean, everyone was going crazy about this MT. And now, some years after that highest wave, I think we are everyone both more pragmatic and more smart about it, for sure.
Mm-hmm. And what kind of content is good
Mm-hmm.
for machine translation post editing?
From our own experience, life science can be a good fit. Technical, repetitive things can be a good fit. Anything that is too specific and too sensitive, too important, we wouldn't recommend MT. Marketing, of course, when you need this special touch and more transcreation, it's definitely not a good fit. So basically technical and life science, that's normally good to go to post editing.
And what about languages?
For languages, the biggest languages prove to have better outputs. So I guess the machines in the background are having more content to learn from. We got some Romanian under our hands, and we were not happy with the results. So I would go with this, that major languages definitely have better outputs. Although we are sometimes, even Slovenian, it's a really small language, or Croatian. Sometimes we are really surprised. I think that these outputs are getting better and better. And it's scary at the same time, and it's not, because serious clients will always want people to go through that. We have some clients that are okay with raw MT or light post editing, just to have a clue what's going on. But they normally resist that. They sort of want a person to go through that. So then it's a relief. We are not going to be replaced.
And now you're striding with confidence into the future. What do you envisage will be the major challenges for you as a company, and generally in the global translation and localization environment?
That's something that's been in the past, and I think that unfortunately it will stay there. As I already touched the topic before, too often we are observed as a cost center. We are in this supply chain, often at the end of the supply chain with really, really short deadlines, and simply observed as a cost center without, clients necessarily realizing the actual role we have. What this translation actually means to them, to their business. But that's something that we realized it's the pain of even much bigger players than we are. So we sort of have to, live with that and try to. I don't like the word educating clients, but just to explain them a bit, get closer to this realization, what our service actually means to them. Another thing which I already mentioned, there's a lot of content there, and consequently deadlines are getting really short. And we have to work at a faster and faster and faster pace, and of course with the same quality, and most likely with the same prices. That's that's how it is. And the automation, it's definitely here to stay, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. But as everyone else, we are worried about the toll it might have on human relations. So too much automation is definitely something that, at least in our company, we will tend to avoid. To if not pick up the phone and call the person on the other side, at least to write a personalized one-to-one email. And hopefully now meet in person. So I think here and there we have to poke ourselves, and actually reach to the other person. That's something that we should have on our minds all the time.
Coming from a sociologist, I think this is really good advice. So,
oh, thank you so much.
and you said that you had to learn a lot in the early stages, and you continually learn because that's a necessity of life today. And how do you learn personally, and how do you learn as a team?
Yeah. Here comes another cliche, but it's true. You, at least me personally, I really learn from the daily tasks. There is practically every day that something comes to my table that I'm not necessarily comfortable with, or I know everything and I have to dig. And those days that I'm sort of staying in my comfort zone, and then I have Gregor to push me. And I'm not always happy about that, but when it's done, I'm happy with the experience, and with or without results, it doesn't matter. Then, of course, I think there's a lot of learning material. It's a bit overwhelming, I have to say, but we have a lot of these industry events and channels. So I'm always willing to listen to the wise people who have more experience in the industry. Of course, you have to be selective and just pick what talks to you, what makes sense to you. But by far, I have to say, it's when I learned from my team. As I said, I don't have this background. I did learn a lot, but of course there are gaps, and I always like hearing something new, even the smallest things, even about the new small function in memoQ that I didn't know about. That's when I'm the most happy. That's how it is.
And what new competencies will you be developing in the near future? Have you already identified something?
We grow every year. And we realized that when you grow, you cannot grow at all or at a given pace without good people, talents, as we say today. And that's something that we are currently working on, attracting good tech-savvy people, people with drive. So this is definitely something for us. Sorry, I got that gone. This is definitely something for us to learn how to attract, pick these people at the end of the day. Of course, the technology is there's a lot of that. Again, you have to follow that and implement it when it makes sense to you. So that's learning in that direction is never ending. And for sure, as I mentioned, remote interpreting is definitely something that is opening up, although I think on-site events will get back, but online would stay. So I think there's a lot of room for improvement and learning there. And in general, we have so much room to develop. So I suppose there's endless list of skills that we have to gain for sure.
And just before we move on to the closing remarks, are there any conferences that you have already identified for this year where you'll be participating?
Yes, we even before the pandemic came, we planned to go to Berlin to Lockworld. So Lockworld is normally on our list. Now, when it went online, we are able to participate in all three that are on a yearly basis, if I'm not wrong. But next year we should go to Berlin. memoQ Fest should be on the list as well, especially because we have such a great partnership, and Budapest is it's close to Ljubljana, so it's something that we shouldn't miss, I believe. So that's for this first part of the year, and there's of course many online events. And in the second half, probably TechCom. This is we've never been there, so every year we sort of have it planned, but then we didn't participate. So that could be something new for us this year.
Time to set up a new booth.
We'll see. I have to talk to Gregor about it. Yeah, why not?
Excellent. So Olivera, thank you so much for joining us today and for this really super insightful conversation we had. And before we wrap this up, would you have any closing remarks?
Other than thanking you for to join you for this podcast, I just wanted to say hi to your listeners. And I don't have anything much to add other than that I'm pleased to be in this community. So, and I don't think you can survive in it if you observe it only as your job. You have to love it.
Excellent message for the closing. Thank you again, Olivera.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you for joining memoQ Talks, where we talked with industry leaders about their experiences and lessons learned to gain new insights about what works best across all areas of localization. Join us next time on memoQ Talks.